Hello, freaks, geeks, degenerates, basement dwellers, and you so weird botniks. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. I think I messed up with this video because it's a long one, obviously, because I'm spending a lot of time talking about Belgorod because I'm rambling like I always do, and talking about hypotheticals I have no business talking about. And then I move on to the rest of the front line, highlighting that, Ukraine is actually pushing back, notably north of Kupiansk and down at Pokrovsk, and Ukraine is close to potentially surrounding a lot of Russian troops. And I just realized, why did I make all of this into one video? Why didn't I make... I should have made one Belgorod video and one Pokrovsk video. Yeah, but I didn't. I made it now in this one video. So, yeah. We're gonna be talking about Belgorod because Ukraine has taken another town or village. And then we're gonna take a look at Pokrovsk, where Ukraine is close to actually surrounding potentially thousands of Russians. Let's head on over to the maps. And here we have Deep State, we have Kursk. Ukraine is holding on still, but if this is the 24th, moving on to the 25th, what happens? Kaboom! Look at this. We also see a lot of Russian activity up here along the border. They're trying to sneak in with small units. I read that in a news article today. Trying to sneak in with smaller units of infantry to gain a foothold here and there, put pressure on the Ukrainians. We also saw Ukraine falling back here, but notably, Deep State, after a week, remember, Ukraine made this push last week, began doing this. Now, after a week, they're now updating, showing us that Ukraine is in Demidovka, showing us that Ukraine is in Popovka here in Belgorod Oblast. Clearly, they have kept the lid on, as per orders from Syrsky and the Ukrainian High Command. But here we are now. This should be an indication that Ukraine actually considers that they have some ground here, since they've been trying to keep it quiet on Deep State for this long. Now they're comfortable with actually showing us where they are according to Deep State, and they are in Demidovka and they are in Popovka. Moving over to the to Andrew Perpetua's map, you can see here you also have the Russian incursions along the border up here along Kursk. This is the 25th, updated 5 hours ago. And when we come down here, you can see how Popovka is contested. There's still some kind of fighting going on at Prelysia. But we also have 2 bridges destroyed. A bit unclear, but this should be Ukrainians. If a bridge is blown back here, that should be a Ukrainian strike. To prevent Russian reinforcements moving north of this valley and this river, making it more difficult for Russia to bring in reinforcements to this area, obviously. But Ukraine is indeed in control of Popovka, or fighting in Popovka. We see the same when we move to Mayakovsk 73. He has Popovka under Ukrainian control. Yesterday they only had Demidovka, now they also have Popovka. Still not in Prelysia according to Mayakovsk, like we saw on Andrew Perpetua's map. Moving over to Ukraine control map, again Popovka, Ukraine is in the town. We have geolocated Ukrainians in Demidovka. Ukraine has tried to reach Prelysia, just like we saw on Mayakovsk's map. Like I said, Andrew Perpetua has Ukraine all the way into town. ISW has Ukraine south of town in these wooded areas, in these smaller valleys. So it's a bit unclear what's going on down here. fog of war is a bit thick around this small village or town. But up here, clearly, Ukraine grabbed Demidovka the other day and has, within the last 24 hours, also secured Popovka. So, if you remember a couple of days back, when let's see here, when we were here, and it was established. This is the 22nd. Ukraine had pushed in on the 17th or the 18th, and they were holding territory in Belgorod. And I was expecting around the 22nd. They need to move on. They need to push through Prelyshe. They need to reach Demidovka. Otherwise, there's a fair chance that Russia will put a stop to this and push Ukraine back into Sumy Oblast. And then, of course, we had this all out of nowhere. Ukraine is in Demidovka. They're pushing up towards Popovka. And then this on the 24th and 25th. So we'll see here. If we take a look at Mayakovsk 73, they are up in Popovka as well. So maybe this is what I've been waiting for. Ukraine getting some momentum, pushing in and grabbing towns and important defensive positions. This is now a good place for Ukraine to build up forces within Belgorod and being able to push on to Romanovka, maybe continue north to Goptarovka. I'm thinking Romanovka will be the next target. As you can see, it's difficult for Ukraine to bring supplies through the area here. Here they have some roads. Roads are easily targeted, granted, by drones, but still this is where they can more easily bring in reinforcements to support Popovka and Demidovka. And I'm thinking Romanovka is the next target, unless they make a more grand effort for Grafovka. They have blown up the bridges here, so maybe gather troops here, push for Grafovka from the north, since this bridge has been damaged and destroyed. That could be it. So Romanovka or Grafovka will be the next targets once Ukraine has well and truly secured the area here, which according to Mayakovsk 73 they have. So it's not unreasonable to think that Grafovka is the next target, especially since we do seem to have some activity here. Even on the ISW map, this area here is showing that we have Ukrainian activity along the border. So Romanovka and Grafovka is where we can expect Ukraine to move out towards. Is what I suspect. It feels like it, right? But this is major. This is important. The Vatniks are going to go, oh, they're only taking 2 villages. But it is important because, I mean, it will draw manpower from up here down here into Belgorod, which makes it more difficult for Russia to push into Ukraine, into Sumy Oblast. It will force Russia to continue the war within Russia instead of within Ukraine, and so on. So making these pushes here, putting pressure on the Russians within Russia, helps the great war effort. It ties up Russian forces within Russia instead of letting them pushing into Ukraine or letting them be moved elsewhere to fight on other front lines within Ukraine. So, and I'm thinking this is deliberate. This has probably been the plan all along. Ukraine fought in Kursk for 8 months. During those 8 months, they prepared the defenses behind Sudzha and within the river system. We talked about this. This is why Russia is struggling to push Ukraine out of Kursk, because Ukraine is now defending prepared defenses, and they more than likely have similar defensive lines within Sumy here that they have prepared for 8 months, being ready for Russia to follow them once you reach this point in time when you do leave Kursk. And as part of this falling back strategy, they must have scouted the defenses down here They're working according to a plan, and they knew that as soon as we leave Kursk, we will move forces down here to Belgorod to apply more pressure down here, force the Russians to send troops this way, and keep the Russians in Russia, lock them in place within Russia, and keep the war in Russia. And we've seen it when they started pushing into Belgorod. We saw mine-clearing vehicles moving, operating here, firing long cords, detonation cords across minefields and blowing gaps for vehicles to move through. And that clearly suggests that they had done extensive recon along this border, finding where the minefields were, how wide they were, how deep they were, so that they can send in these mine-clearing vehicles to effectively clear a path through the minefields and through the dragon teeth and what have you. So Ukraine had more than likely scouted this entire area for 6 months, 8 months as well, or maybe even while they were scouting the borders of Kursk, they were probably maybe scouting the borders down here as well. So I'm thinking this is part of the defensive strategy when it came to, okay, we're leaving Kursk, now it's time to apply pressure to Belgorod to tie up the Russians down here and not allow them to steamroll us and things like that. So, and it does appear to go to plan. Now the Vatniks are going to get upset again. What do you mean going to plan? They're being pushed out of Kursk. Here's the thing. I mean, we all can agree that there was no way in hell that Ukraine was going to hold territory in Russia. Russia would eventually move in all the manpower they needed to force Ukraine out. Right? We can all agree that that was inevitable. Meaning, Ukraine knew that this situation was inevitable. Eventually, they would end up in this situation. And they had to prepare for it. Which we clearly see. Russia can't push Ukraine out of Kursk just yet, because Ukraine has prepared defenses in Kursk. They more than likely have prepared defenses all over Sumy Oblast here, in these woods, prepared for Russia following them. And this incursion here is also part of the defensive strategy. When it's time to leave Kursk, push into Belgorod, cause trouble, cause issues, force the Russians to allocate manpower down here instead of allowing them to fight on up here or pushing into Sumy Oblast. So it's all tied together, it's all part of the plan. This is deliberate, and Ukraine has been waiting for this moment to happen, because they knew the moment they entered into Kursk, they knew that this would be the end result, right? And so yeah, we'll see here. It all depends on how many troops Ukraine has available and how much resources they can spend and stuff like that. We saw, if we take a look at Andrew Perpetual's map, if we go back here a bunch of days, here we are, 17th, we jump ahead to the 18th. As you can see here, a lot of Ukrainian losses as they're pushing in. It keeps going. On the 19th, Russian shelling, but you have Ukrainian losses all over the place. And same thing here, 21st, right? So they have taken a lot of losses pushing in to Belgorod, Ukraine. So, and the Russians, they're saying, oh, it's 50 vehicles and 2,000 Ukrainians are dead. Whatever. But after 8 months in Kursk, they need to be careful with the resources they have. They've lost a lot of troops, manpower, resources, supplies up in Kursk. So pushing in here, it can't be too costly, because then they're going to get pushed out. Or they will be able to take these two towns, but won't be able to move on to Romanovka and Grafovka, right?
So we'll see what happens, how much fight Ukraine has left in them up here in Sumy, if they have the strength and willpower to push out from Demidovka towards Grafovka and Romanovka. I'm hoping they have the capacity to do so. We just don't know. We'll have to see how this week unfolds. At the moment, it's looking good. At the moment, Ukraine has secured this corner. Demidovka, Popovka. They are on the outskirts of Grafovka. They are on the outskirts of Preleshe. So it's looking good. It's looking good. And so this map suggests we will see Grafovka seeing some severe action in a couple of days. Maybe Preleshe. And Romanovka eventually. The bridge is blown at Grafovka, so that might suggest that Ukraine will come into the northern part here of the town of Grafovka and at least take half of it. Remember how I was talking about rivers, how rivers decide how you maneuver and stuff like that? We have this river. I was talking about this river being the southern edge of the Ukrainian incursion. It may be that this river here will be the southern border instead, or the southern edge, if they're not able to push into Preleshe, that is. So Grafovka, and then follow the river to Nadeshevka, and pushing into Romanovka, Sabushevka up here, and Goptarovka. And using these valleys here as borders for how far they push out, and using these waterways and bodies of water to help them hold and defend territory. So they have blown up bridges along this river, and if we take a look at Andrew again, sorry. So this might be the southern border that they intend to move out to and establish a presence north of this river. Goddamn cough. And then maybe utilize these valleys, and as you can see, you have a bunch of lakes here that will be able to help them hold territory to the north. So maybe, where the hell is it? Deep State, here you are. Maybe Ukraine intends to let's see where we have all the lakes. Where are the lakes? Well, maybe they intend to grab something like along Grafovka here, and you have lakes here and lakes, so maybe out here, maybe you have lakes up here as well. They have options if they want to move along the waterways, and then you can have defensive positions in these wooded areas here if you want, along this small valley here. So Ukraine sure as hell has options if they can push out from Demidovka, that is, towards Grafovka, towards the town over here, and then taking the smaller villages and the valleys and patches of woodlands here and there. So yeah, wonderful drawing, but you get my meaning, right? The bodies of water are natural obstacles. It makes it difficult for both sides to maneuver. If you blow up the bridges, all of a sudden this is almost impassable terrain. Which means you can establish defensive positions along it, forcing the enemy to try and find crossing points elsewhere, and then you can focus on cleaning up enemy pockets north of this river, for instance, or between these rivers, and then you have the high ground, and then you can focus on towns elsewhere, and so on. Eventually, down the line, in a week or 2 or 3 from now, right? You're speculating, but it makes sense, right? I think it does. But enough of this bullshit. So yeah, we've been taking a look at Kursk, somewhat this is the territory that Ukraine just lost. This tactical pig farm here is now under Russian control. So you can, it was the woods north of the tactical pig farm. Okay, so they lost these woods and fell back. They are not out in these fields. They are in these valleys here. And the Russians are in the woods and what have you. So Ukraine is holding this valley and these valleys leading out from it. This is where Ukraine is defending. Russia is in the woods, and Russia now has to figure out how to cross these fields to get to the Ukrainians. That's essentially the situation up here. And of course, Ukraine has Demidovka, and they also have Pokrovsk, or whatever the name of the town was. But we're going to take a look at some other locations, because it's a lot of interesting stuff has been happening of late, to be honest. Here we go. This is a good map to show it, because if we move down, of course we can see here Ukraine has been pushing Russia back ever so slightly north of Kupiansk around Voritsna. Russia has made additional gains up here. Should be noted. You can see here on the 19th, boom, and then on the 22nd this happened. But Ukraine has had some successes as well in pushing the Russians back. Maybe it is Russia giving up on Kupiansk and moving assets north to fight up here around the border instead. That could be it. Down here, there was a big patch of woods here on a small hill that Ukraine reclaimed a couple of months back. Big thing. And of course, if we move ahead here, we have the liberation of the town or village town of Nadia the other day. A small victory, but if you take a look at the big picture, it follows a recent pattern where you have Ukraine pushing back at various locations. Toretsk, of course, is an ongoing battle back and forth. Then you have Ukraine pushing back up here, Ukraine pushing into Lysivka, Dashenske, Peshane, Kotlyne. And now we're going to take a look at something real interesting, Uspenivka, Shevchenko, but we're not going to be using Deep State's map. We're going to move over to Mayakovsk 73. Take a look what Mayakovsk 73 has to show us. This push has been ongoing for a couple of days into Shevchenko. Ukraine is contesting the entirety of Shevchenko. A couple of days ago, Russia made this push into this part of town via the windbreaks here. They managed to gain access. But the town is contested. And here, all of a sudden, this just happened. Ukraine pushed in along the river Solona towards the town or village of Solone, having secured Uspenivka a week or so ago maybe. And now they made this push, forcing Russia to abandon these wide open fields, or rather abandoning these positions where there's actual cover, and Ukraine is now in Solona. And this is big. This is massive. Why? Because right here, this bridge is one of Russia's two main supply routes leading in to this part of the battlefield. So here you have the Solona River. This is a small island in the middle of it. Here's one bridge. You can see the dirt track leading down to that small crossing point here. That's a bridge. So this is one way to get across the Solona River. And as you can see, Ukraine is now right on top of that location, causing massive issues for the Russians, no doubt. This is big. This is actually a big win for the Ukrainians if they can maintain control of this part of town, because then they have cut off one logistical route for the Russians out of two, or three I should say, because Russia has been pushing back into Peshane. This is the second option the Russians have, coming across this dam. leading up to Vovkove. And then, of course, they can move through Peshane and through Peshane reach Vovkove, or coming up this way through all the various cover, windbreaks, valleys, and what have you. So Russia has opened up Peshane to an extent, since they have pushed into this town again. Ukraine was in control of Peshane for a couple of days. Since then, Russia has increased the efforts of reclaiming it for obvious reasons, logistical reasons. If Ukraine holds Peshane, this route here is under threat. So then when they're crossing the dam, the only option they have is moving across the fields and moving up on foot through the windbreaks here. So as you can see, it's a battle for the logistical routes leading into this part of the battlefield. At the same time, we're also seeing the push in through Shevchenko straight for Novotroitsk. Ukraine has also pushed into Uspennivka. They're moving to Solone. This is also a push towards Novotroitsk. It's a pincer move by Ukraine, a pretty aggressive pincer move. They are pushing into Shevchenko. They are pushing through Novovasilivka. They are heading for Novotroitsk. If they can move along the Solona River here as well as here, then all of the Russians up here are all of a sudden either cut off from supplies and reinforcements, or they will be surrounded. Right? The Russians are in trouble, as you can see at the moment. This is not good if you're Russian. This is Ukraine moving very close to succeeding in cutting off logistics and surrounding the Russians up here. If we take a look at Deep State, let's see here. Here we have Shevchenko. It is partially under Ukrainian control, like so, or is under Ukrainian control. And Ukraine has also moved into here halfway through Solone. I was a bit too eager on the drawing there, but it's roughly halfway. Here you have the Solona River goes down here. Here is the river coming in from the north. Here is the dam, and the river continues down here. So, as you can see, if Ukraine can, here we have one logistical route. The other is through here, and the other goes in north through Peshane to Vovkove. Ukraine had all of Peshane for a while, cutting this supply route. They are now at Solone, cutting this supply route, and they are trying to push down to Novotroitsk from Shevchenko and Uspennivka. So as you can see, if they reach Novotroitsk, all of this is isolated due to the waterways. Again, water, it's isolating, it's an obstacle, it makes it difficult. And you only have so many crossing points that you can rely on. All of a sudden, if you can push in on those crossing points, you can cause a lot of trouble for an enemy trying to operate beyond the waterways without reliable logistics. And if Ukraine can move closer to Novotroitsk, they apply massive amounts of pressure on the Russians in this pocket here right outside of Pokrovsk. And I'm sorry, this turned out way longer than I had intended. I'm rambling and going on and like I'm doing right now, talking a lot of nonsense. But what I wanted to finish off with is, yes, we have all of these Ukrainian pushes forcing Russia back at various locations. It is a trend that Ukraine is beginning to slowly push Russia back at certain locations. Could be because Russia has allocated, 100,000 troops to Kursk and Belgorod to deal with these incursions. That could be it. You know, Ukraine or Russia using donkeys and Ladas might be another one. But what I wanted to finish off on was Russia is still advancing, right? Over here, this part of the front line, Russia is pushing forward steadily. We must not forget this. And of late, take a look at this, what's going on here south of Zaporizhia. Zaporizhia and this part of the battlefield. We're on the 25th. We're going to go back a couple of days. Boom. And, well, a couple of days more there. Boom. Boom. That's right. So, as you can see, right, they are advancing. And it's the same thing from here all the way down to Velika Novosilka. Remember, not that long ago, a few months ago, but Russia was back at Kurakove and Vuhledar and south of Velika Novosilka, and now they've pushed up all of this way. So they are advancing, and even if we're seeing Ukraine actually pushing back at various locations. But the important thing is Ukraine is pushing back, right? They are able to force Russia back at various locations, notably around Pokrovsk, a lot of blue. They're taking the fight to them in Toretsk. They have some successes here around Dvorichna, down here at this blue patch. And most notably, they are invading Russia, taking ground from the Russians within Russia itself. If that is not pushing back, I don't know what is. But I've been going on for far too long here. This video turned out far longer than I expected. And damn it, I'm not even done with it. So yeah, this video just went on and on. Me talking a lot of bullshit. Anyway, it is what it is. It is my video. I can do what I want. And if you watch it, what the hell are you doing? Do something else with your life. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found it interesting. And that's going to have to be the end of it. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.